Hi, it's Lisa Christensen. I wanted to do a watercolor demo of a mindfulness activity that I love to do. I do this all the time in the winter because I just love the outcome that comes. And basically it's paint a scene where you want to be, because in the wintertime I get SADS and I need the sunshine and I need to feel like I'm at like the beach or something. So I thought I painted this as an art therapy exercise, and I thought I would share with you how I paint this in as a mindfulness exercise. So I'm using Seasonal paper. It is really cool paper. It is awesome. It is super textured, and I love the texture of the paper, and it's 140 pound, so it's really thick paper, and it's 5x7, so it's perfect to paint a scene and then someone could just frame it. And so that's the plan. And so when I developed this, what do I want to paint? I want to paint palm trees. I want it to be a beach scene. It's not meant to be like perfect. It's very much an intuitive landscape, and let's get started. So I am using, in this one I used sap green with some turquoise paint, but I'm changing it up a little bit because I can, and I'm actually going to use undersea green because I haven't used undersea green much. This is a Daniel Smith. It is basically ultramarine blue and quin gold and maybe some raw sienna. So I'm hopeful that I can get a lot of different tones with this green, and the palm trees will be perfect for the green. And then we got yellow ochre for the sand. So I'm going to put that next to the green. Probably don't need that much yellow ochre, but you never know. And then I'm going to use ultramarine blue, and I might as well put this one right here by the green, and I don't mind if the colors mix because these three colors are like my triad. Well, four colors. The three colors that I'm showing, cobalt blue, yellow ochre, and then ultramarine is a great triad. And because we're doing palm trees, I didn't want to mix my greens. We'll see, I might be wishing I had, but I think that's enough. Cobalt violet. I'd love to know your thoughts if you've used these three colors as a triad. I know the cobalt violet is kind of a modern take on magenta, and a lot of artists will use magenta. And then I'm going to use this duochrome oceanic. It looks green, but it's perfect. It has this duochrome usually has like another color, like it'll look green, but it has this really pretty blue to it as well. And it's mica. It has a mica pigment in it, so it's gonna make the water sparkle. So there's my there's my color palette. And if I were to do this, I would be having some. When I painted this one, I had some like island music. That's the best way. It was instrumental, and I could hear the waves, but I could also hear like flutes and steel guitars, and it just made me feel like I was in an island or on an island on the beach. Alright, I'm using a number 6 round, and let's just get started. I will probably wish I had a bigger brush. I will use my squirrel mop brush, my Neptune, Princeton Neptune. This is a size 6. It's a mop brush, a quill mop brush, and it has a tip at the end, so it really helps with getting some really fun little marks on the paper. Anyways, I'm gonna first decide where my horizon line is with some water. And if I were just to do this as an intuitive thing, there's my line for the water, and then I'm going to go ahead and do my sky first, because I always, with intuitive landscapes, I like to paint the sky first. I have a system, and I just like to be in the moment. Alright, so I'm going to take this ultramarine, and if you wanted more of the, like a violet, or not just ultramarine, add some of this cobalt violet. It is going to be a little more on the cool side, but I think it'll be really pretty. And this Seasonal paper, look at that. Oh, it just makes my heart so happy. Oh, I just love it. I'm eating lunch with a friend today, and so I thought she would like this 5x7 watercolor of a of a beach scene, because she's going there soon. She's going to a beach. We live in Iowa, so we don't get to see the beach. So I'm really excited for her and her family to go to the beach. And I thought, well, this will just give her a reason to be excited for her trip. And it makes me happy to paint something. Okay, I want some of this blue. I want this horizon. I'm going to have my beach to about here. That's where my beach is going to start. And it's just basically a triangle. I'm not going to be too worried about it yet. And it is very wet. My brush is wet. It's going to dry. It'll dry pretty fast because it's pretty dry in our house. It's winter. Even though it's raining outside in February. Okay, now we got our ocean. So I'm going to take this violet, and I might even try a tiny bit of this undersea green, because I know it has some of that really pretty. I can make a pretty turquoise. Not too much green, just a little bit. Yeah, you can see. Okay. And I'm going to drop it in right here. There's where the undersea green and ultramarine. And yes, I know I'm going to have to add some of this blue into the sky, but I will once I don't have as much blue. But what a beautiful turquoise this makes. I'm just kind of creating some waves, but I'm not going into the beach because I want to have that white right here. And you have to move pretty fast. This is why I call it an intuitive landscape. When I do my mindfulness watercolor exercises, I really try to look at the pigment. How's the pigment staying on the page? And this paper is just a dream to work with because you have that beautiful texture. Yeah. And of course, if I was going to make it look more like a beach, I would probably, I'm going to just kind of make it look like, and then sometimes I can splatter. I want some splatter over here. That looks good. And now I'm going to take some of that oceanic mica pigment. I didn't put very much in my palette because I only want it in the water. And you can either, this is your choice, you can either splatter like that, or when I get into like where I want my, I don't really want my focal point is kind of right here, and that's perfect. Just remember, if you want your focal point somewhere, maybe don't splatter right there. Anyways, I really like that. Like I said, I'm going to have to add a little bit more ultramarine to the sky. And so I'll add it. I like this purple right here. I'm going to add this ultramarine right like that. Okay. And that will just kind of, I don't really have to do a whole lot to it. I really like that. Okay. And I like how how it's coming together. It's really coming together quite nice. Now I used a whole bunch of cobalt violet splatter. But before I do the splatter, I want to get into this, I want to get this sand a little bit more brown, I guess is a good way. So I'm going to just add some shape, some texture to the landscape, to the sand. And then once it's dried, I'll come back in and add some of that splatter. Okay. One of the rules that I use for my landscapes is I know that the landscapes are always you only see like your horizon line should be straight. And it is almost straight. But I want it to be completely straight. I'm going to have to add a line right here, and I'm okay with that. However, let's start with the palm trees. It's still pretty wet, so we might have to wait just a tiny bit, but we can make that work. Yeah, I'm going to actually pause it and then come right back so you can see the sky is a little bit too wet for that. But maybe I'll be alright. Let's try it. The worst that's going to happen. So what I did is I did a little bit of yellow ochre and that green, and it makes for a perfect like stem, and it's pretty thick. It is a thicker consistency. And then I'm actually gonna, oh yeah, this paper is a dream to work with. Like, it doesn't really bleed like it should because of the texture. The texture really adds to it. Yeah, and I think for this one, because it's, you know, still an intuitive landscape, I'm going to do 3 palm trees, and then back in the back I'm going to do just some lines. These are just little tiny palm trees in the back. And actually I'm just going to add some green, so it looks like I'm gonna have to add some of that blue back into it. There, the ultramarine blue really makes a difference. Okay, then I think my ocean is about ready for a horizontal line. And it's very intuitive. I did a lot more wet into wet this time around than I did in this one, but that's okay. It's really fun to play with this paper. I really like it. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm gonna, it's looking very nice. So I'm gonna turn this light on a little bit more so you can kind of see. Maybe it won't be so shadowy. Okay. Now I think I'm going to carry on with this green. Remember, I mean, you can barely see. I'm just getting the form right. And then we'll go in, and every time you paint, you learn a little bit more. So, you know, like with this one, I can almost this is just the form, like the skeleton. We'll go back in with a drier brush and get in the details. But I really like these. I don't know, I feel like these look like stars. Palm trees are, like, if you look at the shape, they are very much like stars, but I also enjoy their shape. When I don't know what to paint, I'll just paint palm trees. I had a little bit more yellow ochre to this one, but now we're getting it because I want, you know, different shades. I can go pretty much darker with this and just kind of make it seem like they're palm trees. There, I like that. That's a good start. I'm going to go back in with some yellow ochre. Again, this is such an intuitive process. Like, enjoy, have fun with it. I also know that palm trees has like, they have kind of like this grassy, I don't know, like these little leaves coming off, so maybe in a couple of them you would have that. I don't know. You know, you get really good at painting intuitively by looking at what you like to paint. So I will go and study landscapes or, you know, whatever landscapes. I like to go to aquariums because I also like to, I like the idea of painting fish. I'm not always great at it, but it's fun. Okay, so I gotta kind of let this dry a little bit. I'm afraid that if I go much further, it's just wet, too wet to do a whole lot of dry brush. But I will. I got some more of this cobalt violet. I'm actually gonna use my toothbrush because the sand's pretty dry. I'm gonna take my toothbrush and basically dip in the rest of the cobalt violet. I'm gonna cover it up with my hand, but I'm gonna take this toothbrush and give it some splatter, and I'm gonna do that the same with my yellow ochre right down there, and that's just gonna give us a lot of good texture. You're not gonna, you know, you're gonna see it anyways. I'm going to go ahead and dry this real quick. This is very much dry. Now I can go back in and I'm going to paint my palm trees. And I'm just going to use, I really am loving this undersea green. I don't know if you guys have ever used undersea green. I bought it for the workshop that I was doing with Michael Holter, and he uses undersea green. Well, he makes his undersea green, but he's like, if you don't have the time or the patience to make this green, buy it. And so he's like, there's nothing wrong with buying it if you know. So now this is where this is what I like to do. I like to be expressive with my paint. So I know that palm trees have these little leaves, and they are my make-believe palm trees, which if you're intuitive, you know, that's quite all right. And I'll go from the regular green to a bluish green, especially in the, you know, middle part. And then on the outside parts, I like to do the yellows. But you want a variation in color. Now I'm going to go straight into my yellow ochre. And it looks a little bit brown, but that's okay. Too much water in my brush. I always have to remember I'm growing these palm trees, so how do I want the palm trees to grow? I'm going to add some more of that yellow green into it just to give it there. And that's probably my focal palm tree. This is, for me, very therapeutic. I'd love to know what is therapeutic for you. Do you paint, like when I paint for anything where it's just brushstroke after brushstroke is like my favorite. I feel like it's very therapeutic. I'm going to have to add some more of that green back in. It looks too yellow to me. There. And then I'll take it back, and it needs some of that ultramarine right in there. Good deal. And I'm going to just make another one like that. It just needs to look fuller, in my opinion. It's in my mind, so, you know, I do what I want. Okay, this one is, here's my little ball of greenness that comes from the palm tree. Alright, now I can just kind of, I don't want to say make stars, but realistically that's what we're doing, is we're going to be painting loose stars. And the further we go, the more blue we get. That's why I added a lot more ultramarine, or that's why I added a lot more yellow ochre here. And then I'm going to come in and darken up my stuff a bit more. I probably should have gotten my greens down, but we'll do that in a little bit. I like using a porcelain palette. It doesn't matter what, you know, this is an old ashtray from my grandma. But I love this because it's perfect for painting. You know, if you're only going to paint it with a couple colors, you might as well let them run together, because you'll say, oh yeah, that's a pretty color together, I should use that. Like I could use some of this purple to get some more of this brown if I wanted to. Which I do. Yeah. And you're not really going to notice. You're going to think, oh, that purple doesn't really look purple. Oh, I'm loving that. Okay, I gotta add, I see some ultramarine. I just need to pop that in. I love this paper. We're just about done, and this is where it gets, I don't know, I like when I can just kind of make these palm trees however I want. Probably should have just let that become one big shape. I would love to know if you ever paint in plein air, and if you do, I would love to know where you go to paint, because that's another fun way to do that. Okay, I'm not going to add any more green, just right here to kind of separate, and I'm actually going to take this, I need just a little bit more of this cobalt violet. It really makes a pretty brown. And I didn't even squeeze the tube out, it just, the paint came out. So you don't always have to squeeze the tube, and a little bit of watercolor goes a really long way. Okay. Kind of see, I'm just gonna add the details back in. And why not? I'm just gonna add some shadow. I always like to add a violet, a blue, yeah, a violet for my shadow. I would call this a warm shadow, which is what you want, right, on the beach. I don't know, maybe this one's coming that way. That would make sense, huh? Okay. Now, I'm going to re-splatter, because that splatter didn't quite go well. But sometimes you have to glaze over your first initial wash just to get that color back in. And that's what I'm doing. But again, it's intuitive. So now I think we're ready to add that splatter back in. Okay. And again, I'm just going to very close to the my thumb. Yeah, I'm going to need some more. And it might, yeah, it's just another tool in your toolbox. I'm not always getting the splatter that I want, but you get the idea. Anyways, I feel like I could be at a beach somewhere, loving these waves. Trying to think if I could do anything else to make it better. No. But man, this paper really shows that... I love this paper because it gives you an idea of what watercolor can really do. It separates some of the pigment. That's why I chose undersea green, because I see all the different granulations of the paint, more so than I would with sap green, because it's ultramarine, which is already textured enough. You can see the texture, the graininess up here. And then with the yellow, it's just a fun little way to paint a landscape. Bring it, give it to a friend, make it into a card. I could easily make a card here and a card here or something and send it off. If I wanted to cut it in, you know, half, I could. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you liked this part more than you like this part, well, cut it off right here, and you still get the idea of that it's on the beach. And you did something for yourself. You created mindfulness for your own life to become, you know, healthier and happier. So to me, it's a win-win, and whoever you give it to will love it. So if you have any questions on the materials, ask me, but the colors are pretty fun to use, and by all means, if you don't have the same colors that I use something different. I think up here I added some green splatter, which I see now that it's missing. So I'm going to add this real quick. There's always another touch to it that I always seem to forget, but this just gives it more of a painterly look. And if you don't like the sky is dry, so when I get back, I'll clean those splatters up. But oh, look at that. There, that's perfect. Now what I do is I take my clean brush and I will clean it up. I don't want green there. I don't really care if there's some spots, speckles, but I want them to look like I didn't just splatter. So I just kind of add a little bit of a personal touch. I just add water and then make the splatters just look like it was part of the painting. Isn't that fun? Like, I love splattering. It makes my heart happy. And I don't, like, you just erase it with water. But try this Cezanne paper because it's really forgiving, and I really like it. And you can be very intuitive, very impressionistic with this paper, and that's another reason why I like it. I'm actually going to add, I don't want to say more splatters, but this whiteness to the paper is just a little more than I want it to be. So whatever greenish, yellowish, bluish is on the paper, I'm just going to add to it. But I am also paying attention to my light values, and I don't want to take away the light values.